My name is Arielle Clark. I'm 27 years old. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm born in Louisville, raised in Louisville, and I'm not going to leave for a while, mostly because I started my own business, but I'll get back into that later. I identify as a member of the LGBTQ community. Personally, I identify as queer. I'm not straight, and that's all I know. I'm also neurodivergent. I have PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, and major depressive disorder. I'm also Black. I pause a little bit because that surprises some people, because apparently that's not obvious to a lot of folks. I am Black. I grew up Black. I can't erase it. I will always be Black. I will be Black in my grave. I was Black in my mother's womb. But for the longest time, until about the age of 25, I hated it. And so this is my story of how I learned to love my Blackness. I am an amalgamation of Black births, the result of millions of contractions, of thousands of cervixes dilating, opening wide, singing, chanting, yelling arias of new life on the West African plain. I am the product of hundreds of Black wombs carrying Black babies with 10 Black toes and 10 Black fingers and 1 Black struggle. And while our ancestors carried us, little did we know that the kicks and jostles we gave our ancestors' swollen, stretch-marked stomachs were merely practice for when our Black feet would touch the ground and carry the weight of slavery and personhood. We began to train our legs before we knew what they even were, so that we could run to our siblings for comfort while running for offices and from overbearing parents who are just trying to protect us from the harsh, harsh world. The blood in my veins is that of Audrey, of Maya, of Diana and Hallie, of Afro queens and 4C braids and plump pursed lips and wide-set hips. I am the descendant of soulful sisters like me, of slaves who ran and activists who spoke. My history is rich, like my ancestors weren't, who made $1 out of 15 cents and cuisine out of inedible scraps our slave owners threw to us, deeming us unworthy of good meat or unrestricted freedom. This is my history. Black is my blood, and rich is the African soil from whence I came to be. The hatred of my own Blackness began at birth. I came out of the womb fighting for my Blackness. I didn't know that racism was so heavily embedded in our society until I started to grow and started to understand the languages around me. My most significant memories start in my childhood. I remember running around with my barrettes clacking and my braided hair, and the white children would make fun of me, because while they had bows in their hair, I had barrettes. And while they had long, straight blonde hair or cute little business buns, I had 8, 10, 12, 16 braids cascading down my back. They would call me a witch. They would say I have nappy hair. They would say that I never bathed. All of these things these children said to me. Even outside of the educational world, my own family struggled sometimes. But it's not their fault. It's how they were raised. Because if you think it's bad when I grew up, it was even worse when my mother, my father, and my grandparents grew up. By far the worst time in my life was high school. I remember going around and being told that I was very articulate, that I spoke very well, that I'm gonna make it really far in life, that I'll be successful because listen to how she sounds. She speaks so professionally. I used to take that with pride. I used to think, I'm gonna go far in life. I'm sophisticated, I'm educated, I'm above all of those people. But what I didn't realize is that I was so far removed from my own Blackness and my own history, I was hating myself. There's this language called African American Vernacular English. It is a modification of the English language that is from the South African plains and also from the American South. I didn't speak that because I didn't grow up around that. I spoke very eloquent English because my grandmother's from the Philippines, and so enunciating was very important growing up. People said that I was articulate because I spoke this way. But what they really meant was that African American Vernacular English, or AAVE, was considered lesser. They considered it the loss of the English language because of how words were pronounced and how words were modified. So then I asked myself, what's the difference between AAVE and the French accent, or British English, or any other thing? That's because Black people are seen as lesser. And it's so innate and deeply bonded into our bones that we don't even notice. I remember walking through the hallways of high school and thinking, I am not that Black person. I am above all of them. I remember walking through the hallways of school and people would go, "What are you doing out of the cotton fields? You should be making your living." I would laugh with them. I wasn't one of those black people. I would get angry with something. "Uh-oh, Arielle's angry, we're gonna get shot." I would laugh. I don't get angry. I'm not one of those black people. People would look down at me. "How did you get over here off a slave ship?" I would laugh. I wasn't a slave. I was more than that. I was educated. I was articulate. I wasn't one of those black people. I moved further and further away from my own blackness. But the further I moved away, the more comfortable my white friends became, because I was so far from my blackness that I was moving towards a closer proximity to whiteness, and that's what made them comfortable. And I realized that walking down the street one day with one of my white friends, and she looked at me with her hands in her pockets and she said, "Now listen here, Arielle, there's black people, there's African Americans, and there's the N-word. You, my friend, are African American, and that's why I like you. You're not like the others." And I remember I swelled with pride. I'm not one of those black people. I'm African American. My whole life changed when I started undergrad. I went to Bellarmine, great experience. And I had a philosophy class my freshman year, and I remember thinking, I'm gonna have to read all of these books, and I don't really care about philosophy. I wanna go into accounting, I wanna go into math. And we read a book called Sister Outsider by Audrey Lorde. And there was an essay that Audrey Lorde wrote where she talks about the existence of the black woman and the struggle of the black woman, and how the moment that we leave our mother's bodies, we have to fight. We face all of this hatred in modern society as we grow. We internalize all of it and lash it out onto our own brethren. Hurt people hurt people. And so I had internalized all of the racism that I had faced throughout my entire life, whether implicit racism or explicit racism, and was lashing out at my own people who only wanted me to progress and to succeed as much as they wanted to see themselves. And so at the age of 20, I had to unpack literally 2 decades worth of internalized hate. I realized that I couldn't scrub off the blackness in my skin. I couldn't move closer to whiteness because I'm not white. And so at the age of 20, my revelation began. I started getting more black friends. At first, I was only comfortable with black people like me, articulate, spoke the way that I did, moved the way that I did, navigated through the white world like I did. But then as I grew, I started getting black people who were proud and immersed in their own culture, spoke AAVE without any worries, had ornate hair, talked about their experiences in the West End of Louisville, loud and boisterous and proud. And I still do that to this day. And now, instead of being viciously uncomfortable, I've never felt more at home. At the age of 25, I moved in with my first black roommate. At first, I critiqued her for always being loud, always having her nails done, always having these ornate hairdos, but I stepped back and thought, this is the racism coming back again. And so we lived together for about 2 years, and she taught me how to manage my hair properly. She taught me that being black is something to be of pride. She taught me AAVE. She taught me how to move through this world proud in my blackness. At the age of 27, I started dating my first black partner, and she taught me so much. I never thought that I could bond with somebody so closely as I did with a black person like me. And then, also at the age of 27, I started my own business. It is Louisville's first owned, LGBTQ owned, woman owned, black owned business. My business is Sis Got Tea, one of the best tea cafes in Louisville that'll be open by the end of this year. And so I stand before you, proud to be black. And as my shirt says, black by popular demand. I realized something over my journey that's never ever going to end. My black assimilation into white culture was survival, but my black self-love was radical and revolutionary. Thank you.